Hi, this is Ofori, the digital reader, and what I wanted to talk about today is basically why Kobo e-readers suck for me, but why you might like them. So, first thing I kind of want to start out with is, like I said, they're not for me, but I would definitely recommend them to people for certain things that they do because they're great e-readers. And let's just be honest, they're having a moment. They had a moment in 2024 where I kind of feel like the Kobo Libra color was like the darling of BookTube. It's basically two devices in one, since you can buy it without the stylus at an incredibly nice price. And then if you want the extra functionality, then you can pony up for the stylus, and then it comes in, at a little under $300. So the main reasons why I would strongly recommend the Kobo e-reader is, first, and really the biggest thing, is their Libby Overdrive integration. The Libby Overdrive integration that they have is a game changer. I think for a lot of people, Kobo is an incredible proposition if they don't want to spend money on books, if they want to be connected to their local library, and they want to kind of show some loyalty to them. Then really all you need is a Kobo, and the Kobo will be your passport to your library electronically. The interface to me is also amazing because I think a Kobo gets a lot of props from people because they're like, you were brave enough to fully integrate this into your systems where you might lose some book sales because when people look for books, you will tell them if it's available in their library. That is a big selling point for people, is that the Libby integration is second to none, and it is a good reason to never have to buy a book again if you just want to use Libby. The next thing that I kind of want to talk about, especially with their color lines, is the value for money. For what you're getting for the money, for $219, even if you decide not to buy the stylus, it is the best value for money of any e-reader out there. Hands down, when you're looking at the tech, when you're looking at the color, when you're looking at the general interface for reading books, it is the best value for money. And if somebody, wants to get a color e-reader and really move into color, it's a very compelling proposition, which is why it, blew up in 2024 and why it is the darling of BookTube. One thing I would like to mention is how a lot of booktubers who really couldn't be bothered with handling formats and downloading software to switch formats and pull off DRM, how they've really risen to the challenge to move their Amazon libraries to Kobo. And I think it's also been kind of a moment for Calibre or Caliber. I still call it Calibre, I can't help it. But most people are saying it should be pronounced Caliber. Sorry. But it's really been a moment for Calibre. And I just want to say to anybody who is using Calibre, please drop them a couple dollars. If you're using Calibre and you've moved your library of, 40, 50, or 60 or more books, drop them $5 to thank them. Because Calibre isn't trying to be a monopoly, but what it does, there really just is no competition out there. Another thing about Kobo that I think a lot of people like, and I would recommend this to people, is they just do books and audiobooks. And there can be some back and forth argument, but most people consider audiobooks that audiobooks should be in the book world. That's fine. But that's their main focus. They're not like Amazon that's trying to sell you a lawnmower and rat poison and a James Joyce book and a device to read that Joyce book all on the same website. And Amazon has often hurt themselves by trying to integrate all their different worlds into one area So, for example, with Amazon, I left because they started to put their audiobooks and their comics, and they just basically started to dump all their readable media onto the Kindles, and they didn't catch up with giving you the option to search and to filter so that you could just focus on one of those media types if you wanted to. The other thing is that Amazon Music now is also starting to integrate audiobooks and not just music, and it used to be a music focused experience. So when they're starting to mash all those things together, it makes it a little bit harder to get a particular type of customer who loves a particular thing. And what you get is kind of more dabblers who just like to dabble across a whole bunch of different areas. I think that's kind of why the Audible still is so popular, because the Audible app is still out there, and the Audible app is absolutely audiobook focused. And the last thing I would say I would recommend Kobo for to a lot of people is there is a general perception that Kobo is more socially conscious than Amazon. I don't feel there's any real proof, and the reason why I don't feel there's any real proof is because Kobo is doing a lot of things now because they're a much smaller company than Amazon. So they're not having a ton of exclusivity agreements. They're not trying to do a whole bunch of deep discounts that hurt authors, but that's mainly because they need authors. And so right now they're going to make agreements that are in favor of authors so that the authors will continue to go to their platform and Amazon. They're just not in a situation right now where authors are choosing their platform over Amazon. And that kind of gives people the impression that they're just a better option for authors. I think that the jury is still out on that. I think if they start to grow, then honestly, I've always felt that Kobo's model is really to be Amazon when it comes to books. And it'll be interesting to see if they try and carve out their own space. So, all these good things about the device, why does it suck for me? Well, I'll start out with the smaller stuff and then go to the thing that's ultimately a deal breaker. The first thing that I'm not a huge fan of is their weird Kepub format. They have this format called Kepub, and it basically gives more functionality to the ebooks on their devices. And that's why with the Kobo Libra color, you can kind of write right on the book, and you can kind of take notes right on the book. It's because of that Kepub format. The biggest issue I have with the Kepub format is one that a couple people have run into, and that is it's easy to pull the DRM off of your Amazon books. It's easy to store them on Libra. Once you are moving them over to your Kobo, then it's not the cleanest experience, mainly because you have to have your Kobo device attached. You have to basically sync it with Libra, and once you do that, then there's a couple hoops around that. I just feel it's not the cleanest experience, and it kind of burns me up that they have this Kepub format, and on their site they don't talk about it at all. They don't give you any software, or they don't give you a web page or anything if you wanted to take a book or EPUB and change it to the Kepub format. Although it's the format that works best with their device, they just don't give you any way to use that format if that's what you choose to do. Yes, you can use Libra, but as I said, Libra has no affiliation with Kobo. It's just an incredibly versatile piece of software. So I do wish that Kobo had something like a send to Kindle kind of thing, where you could use an app or you could use a website to convert something to the Kepub format. And that is one downside for me, is that the Kepub format is just this weird, mysterious format that's not an EPUB but is an EPUB. The second thing is, I'm kind of sated with my color ebook lust, and I cannot see myself buying another color ebook reader as long as we're still on Kaleido 3. I don't think that Kaleido 3 has gotten that much better, and I feel like everybody who's coming out with an e-reader that uses Kaleido 3, they're pretty much all the same. For me, the main thing that might tempt me to get a color ebook reader is if Pocketbook, which is my reader of choice, if they come out with updated versions of their current line that are actually faster. Because my biggest gripe about Pocketbook is they're pretty sluggish. So I don't really see myself buying any more color e-readers, and I wish that Kobo had an extra big size screen black and white e-reader, kind of like a Kobo Libra black and white. They have the Kobo Clara black and white, but I wish they had a Kobo Libra black and white. I thought about buying their older models, but the honest truth is their color models are a great value for money, but their black and white models aren't that great value for money. They're priced pretty much like the competition, and they're actually, in my opinion, overpriced when compared to their color e-readers and the functionality that you receive. And even with their deep discounts on their older line, I just don't find them priced enough to really compel me to pick one up versus the current competition. The other reason why I'm not a big Kobo fan is I kind of feel like they have an uneven software experience across their lines. I mean, when you look at Kobo, or you look at Pocketbook, or you even look at Barnes & Nobles, their software experience is pretty consistent across all their models, whether you buy the entry-level one or the high-end one. Now, their software experience does change based on hardware features. So there's extra software features for the scribe because it has a hardware feature where you can take notes. There might be some extra software features in the Paperwhites because they might have a warm light. But when you're just looking at what you can do with those devices, the experience is the same across the lines. But the thing that kind of I'm not a fan of with Kobo is that across their model line, their software experience can vary versus what they offer and what they don't offer, and it's not based on the hardware. The biggest example of that for me is when you want to pull your books off of Dropbox. Some of their devices offer that option, some of their devices don't. I have no idea what their business reason is to think that if you get the higher end model, you'll want to do that, but if you get the lower end model, you won't. It just feels like you really have to do your research if you're buying an older Kobo model to make sure exactly what software experience it will give you and what functionality it will give you. Because when they do their updates, they don't update all the devices to what the newest software experience is, which Amazon does, which Pocketbook does. You know, those are things to me that make those devices very future-proof, where I kind of feel like the Kobo devices aren't terribly future-proof if you want a Kobo device and you want to keep up with all the new software stuff that Kobo is going to add to their devices. And the last thing, and the thing that's the real deal breaker for me, why it sucks for me, is you cannot sync your side-loaded books. As most of you know from watching this channel, I buy from a whole bunch of different booksellers and sites, some DRM, some not DRM. And then I take all of them and I put them in my Calibre library, and that's where I store all of my books. If they have DRM, I pull the DRM out of it. If they don't, then I just go ahead and store them there. And then when I want to read books, I take those books from my Calibre library and I put them onto whatever cloud service that e-reader offers so that I can read those books across several different devices. Doesn't have to be all of the devices, but for me, it has to be an e-reader line, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Kobo, whether it's Pocketbook, because I have several of each. Definitely has to have an app for tablet, and it definitely has to have a iOS and an Android app. Those are kind of must for me, and it must sync the progress of my reading across those devices. For Kobo, it kind of feels like, they threw us a bone with, hey, if you want to get a book from your online library, you can use Dropbox. But that just really allows you to do something that you literally could have done by using the browser on the device. I mean, I've pulled books down from Libby, I've pulled books down from ebooks.com, and I've pulled books from Dropbox using just the browser on my pocketbook e-reader. So it's kind of a feature, but it's really just a streamlining of something you could do with a little bit more effort. But once you get those books on your device, they're stuck on that device. And I kind of feel like Kobo may not realize that their business model really makes it attractive to just have one Kobo e-reader. And I notice a lot of people who are buying Kobo e-readers, that's the device they're carrying around. That's their one Kobo e-reader, where because of how Amazon works or Pocketbook works, they kind of encourage you to get multiple devices, because anytime you pick up a device, you're good to go with whatever you want to read. I think that is a real failing for Kobo right now, and for me personally, a deal breaker. I'm hoping at some point they make a decision to have some type of cloud where you can look at books across your devices and sync. Now, I should note, if you buy a book from Kobo, it actually will sync across your devices, which is a great thing, but you have to purchase the book from them. That to me is fine, but it just feels like if I have a Kobo, I just don't really have any reason to buy an additional Kobo. There's, for example, a lot of people will have a big Kindle, a 7-inch Kindle, like a Kindle Paperwhite that they use at home. And they might just have a basic Kindle that they drop in their bag. It's cheap. It can go around with them. And then they can just pull it out and bam, pick up where they left off on the Kindle Paperwhite. If Kobo ever does that, then I would definitely think about switching, because I just think that, like I said, they're compelling devices. It's good value for money. I personally don't use Libby and Overdrive that much, just mainly because I don't like to wait. But I'm the first person to admit that it's an incredible service, and it's really incredible for people who want to be readers but don't want to get caught up in the consumerism of buying books every month and just trying to keep up with the new trends. So I guess that's pretty much it. I mean, it's all about trade-offs, and I think the Kobo e-readers are really, really good e-readers. I think they're great for people who like to use Libby. I think they're great value for money. I love the fact that they're book focused, which means that most of their efforts and most of their money is going to go to making that book experience better, and not which one of the other 10 things that we do should we put this money. And I think a lot of people just feel better about going with the underdog, and they feel better that they feel that currently Kobo's relationship with authors has less exclusive agreements and gives authors more freedom. So I'll probably be doing some of these every now and then. Why something sucks for me, but you might like them. I just think it's just kind of a fun title to roll with. I'm curious to hear anybody's comments on it. But this is Ofori, the digital reader, and keep reading.